Boys and girls, time to Tin Chat, as we do every Friday here on the Locker Room, alongside play-by-play voice of the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, Mike Maas. My name is Peter Hood, and Mike, I feel like we're on top of the world right now. This might be the most unique place in the ballpark that we've recorded a TinChattin. We are currently on top of the home dugout, and this is your first time up here as well.
Yeah, my first time on top of the dugout. Now, I've been in the dugout countless times to do a lot of interviews for our pregame show, but first time up here, and the only two places I can think of where we've been higher. Last year, we had one segment in the treetop section in right field, and another segment on top of the summit on top of the Teddy 400 Club in straightaway center field. But this is the first time up here, and we just chatted before we started the segment. There's a little bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Of a slant.
Slant, thank you. Going from right to left. So if I lean too much to the left, it's all over, and I crash into the seats below. But
the camera is at a point right now where if the wind blows too much, it might fall over. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. But we kept our fingers crossed last week for better Tin Caps baseball, and they've delivered a little bit. Obviously struggled during that homestand against Clinton and against Burlington. But then they go on the road to play Dayton. First of all, they get out of town with a win in the final game against the Lumber Kings. Get out of town with a win. They go to Dayton. They win the first game in a tough place to play against the Dragons, an important game against a team they're jostling for position with as far as the playoff race goes. They lose a tough one last night, but that was a 2-1 loss. They were competitive, had their chances to win. So you feel like this team, after that 2-week slump, is starting to turn it around and play some better baseball.
You know, we start the month of August not too far from now, and they call August the down days, you know, the dog days of summer. But it is the final month, excluding the Labor Day weekend, of the regular season here in the Midwest League. And it's time to really look yourself in the mirror. They're in a dogfight. They got off to that really nice 11-4 start where they had won 11 out of 13 games. And then Bowling Green came to town. And the Hot Rods, who won the first half Eastern title, swept the Tin Caps in a 4-game series. And that started a tailspin, which would result in Fort Wayne losing 12 of their next 14 contests. That stretch allowed everyone else in the East to get back into it. When I say everybody else, you throw Bowling Green and Lansing out because they qualified from the first half. That leaves South Bend. That leaves Dayton. That leaves West Michigan. That leaves Lake County. That leaves Great Lakes, as well as the Tin Caps, fighting for the 2 available spots. Now, heading into play today in the second half, South Bend, which is in second place actual in the half, trailing Bowling Green, the Cubs are 17-16. Lake County, 16-16. Dayton, 16-17. The Tin Caps, 15-17. West Michigan, 13-19. And Great Lakes still struggling, as they have all season long, at 10-23. So you have 37 games left, counting the series finale tonight in Dayton. 37 games. Realistically, Peter, and I know I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, I feel that the Tin Caps will have to win 24 of those 37 to secure a playoff spot.
Well, and you feel pretty good, I mean, about their ability to win 24 games in their last 37. You'd especially feel good if Luis Pitino pitched in all 37 of those games the way he's throwing. Obviously, not realistic to expect him to do that. But you mentioned him, and we were going to talk about him last week, and we ran out of time. But this 18-year-old from Columbia, Mike, some of the numbers that he has put up in the last, since the end of May. He had a rough start, his second start with the Tin Caps, but ever since then, his ERA in the last 2 months is below 1. Nobody, not only in the Midwest League, not only in all of minor league baseball, nobody in all of professional baseball right now is throwing the ball better than this 18-year-old right-hander from Columbia.
And you mentioned it, that second outing against West Michigan, where he got lit up for 7 runs, 7 earned runs, and just over 3 innings of work. If you throw that out the window, that's a microscopic earned run average. He's 18, but his mind is probably like 28.
Yeah.
Very composed on the mound, doesn't seem to let things bother him, and he can throw 4 pitches. He's developing all 4 pitches: the fastball, the curveball, the slider, the changeup right now. And when you can have command of your pitches at this level, and yet rarely blink an eye when there are runners on base and you're just 18 years of age, it's phenomenal. I just hope the Padres keep him in Fort Wayne for the remainder of the season.
We've talked about Pitino, and we've talked extensively about Robbie Podolski on this segment every week, and you know, those two guys are really what's great about the game of baseball. I mean, neither you wouldn't look at either of them and think great baseball prospect just by looking at them. Smaller in stature. Neither of those guys were expected. Neither of them were with the Tin Caps when the season started. Right. So neither were expected to be significant contributors in Fort Wayne this year. And Pitino has, at 18 years old, emerged as an ace. Nobody saw that coming. And then Robbie Podolski, a 25th round pick out of McNeese State, has established himself as one of the most dangerous players in the league. That's one of the things that makes baseball great to me, is those kinds of stories that just kind of come out of nowhere.
And we've talked about it before, Peter, but I think it needs to be mentioned again. Robbie Podolski, again, played a couple of years of JUCO ball, then went to McNeese State. Padres thought enough of him to draft him in the 25th round, but as he has said on numerous occasions, he's 5'7". He gets to look up at me at 5'8". Go figure. But he uses that because he hears it all the time. Nah, you're too small. You can't make it. You're not going to go very far. And he uses that as motivation. Luis Pitino coming over to America from Colombia. And yes, he's got lots of God-given ability, and he's getting the chance to play professional baseball at the highest level in terms of there's no better baseball than in America. When you talk about those two players, small in size in terms of height, but in terms of heart, the sky's the limit. The Grand Canyon's not as big as the heart of both Robbie Podolski and Luis Pitino.
There's no doubt about that, and they are going to need those two guys to play well over the weekend, Mike, as they head to Bowling Green. His Hot Rods team has been dynamite all year long. They had some guys called up around the All-Star break, and they have still continued to roll, and currently in first place in the division. Last time the Tin Caps saw the Hot Rods was right here at Parkview Field, and the Hot Rods took care of business, sweeping all 4 games. So now they get 4. The Tin Caps get a little bit of a chance at revenge this weekend. What do they need to do better this time around to give themselves a chance at winning at least a couple games in Bowling Green? Well,
I think the biggest thing is they got to jump out early. Most teams have better records when they score first in a ball game rather than last. 2 of those 4 games in Fort Wayne, the scores were 6-1, games 1 and 4. And the other 2 games were 4-3 and 5-4, so 2 one-run games. And even in those 6-1 losses, the game was closer than the final score indicates. The Tin Caps need to continue to get the good pitching. They need to shore up the defense. They need to strike early.
And you feel pretty good about their chances in at least 2 of those games, like you said, with Hernandez and Pitino on the mound. Always good times here at Parkview Field. Another good time with you here today, and we'll see you back here next week, Mr. Moss.
And I didn't fall to my left and didn't fall down, so we score a win there as well. Peter, always fun to chat with you and talk to our viewers and let them know what's going on with the Fort Wayne Tin Caps.
Always good when you can make it through TinChattin injury-free. No disabled list for Mike Moss or myself, so we'll be back here next week. For now, though, this will do it for this edition of TinChattin. We'll have much more coming up in the locker room right after this break.